We love college rugby here on the Rugby Rundown. We really haven't got enough of it, to be honest, particularly coming off the back of that CRAA Championship weekend, the D1A final in particular. But it's now about the best in the West against the best in the East in this All-American CRAA game from Charlotte. And I'm joined by the two head coaches. From the West, we've got Andrew Cook, who of course coaches St Mary's College. And then from the East, we've got Blake Bradford, Life coach, Life University coach, and also coach with the USA Eagles. Boys, thank you so much for joining me. Let's start with you, Blake, the elephant in the room. D1A Championship final, not to be against Cal. I'm pleased you're smiling about it. How do you reflect on what was still a fantastic final, albeit your boys didn't get the win?
And listen, it's no surprise that we're not happy with the result. Obviously, it's 8 months of hard work that you put into to get to that point, and unfortunately, on the day, we weren't the best team. Credit to Cal, they showed up, and they showed why they've been so consistent all season long. And yeah, it's not the result that we want. I guess the scrum coach and me can be happy with the forwards performance in the game, so I'll stick to that.
Absolutely. We'll come on to seeing some of these names potentially up for selection on this all-star, all-American weekend, because there's a few life boys that are probably in there in the forwards. Andrew, as for you, St Mary's, they lost out against Cal the round before. You've won the championship. And I know you probably don't want to reflect too much on a season where you maybe wish you could have done the if, buts, and maybes, but just how competitive has the college rugby scene been particularly this year?
Yeah, I think the fact that there wasn't a single team without a loss on their record shows that there is a lot more competition across the country. And I would just say like the fall classic that we actually played life in was kind of a great way to end a fall and kind of measure yourself against teams we don't get to play very often, right, with a life university. So I think more events like that where we're getting to play very, very competitive rugby are only going to help to set a new standard for where we can go to.
Blake, obviously you've been part of the USA Eagles as well, so you know very much in terms of the high standards needed to go from college then to go and play international rugby. Like, how much is that gap being closed? Is CRAA doing a good job in producing and developing the talent?
100%. I think CRA and their leadership, Paul Santinelli and his crew have done a wonderful job of creating these opportunities. Like Andrew said, for a lot of our guys, that was the highlight of their season, right? The gap's closing, right? This is the next group of players, and we're really excited to see what CRA has done for the growth of college rugby. And these are the players that we'll get to see play in World Cups in 2027 and 2031. Like they're the next group of potential Eagles. And as we start closing that gap, it's just going to mean the growth for USA Rugby as we keep challenging to be the best in Tier 2 and towards that moonshot in 2031 and making that quarterfinal in the Rugby World Cup. And college rugby is at the heart of that.
And is it almost fair to say that this weekend on Saturday, when the West versus the East, this all-American game is almost helping that spotlight and then also development for these, well, the best college players? Andrew, you're going to be together. You are, I guess, leading the coaching staff, also with Harry Bennett, UCLA coach. And then Blake, you're then going to be joined by Zach Mazel from Penn State. How good, I guess, what is the goals? I want to probably ask about why you're doing this game this weekend.
I would say that the biggest one is what Blake just mentioned. Can we start identifying who can be in the 27 and 31 World Cup now, today, with this camp going through the week, culminating in a game on Saturday, but then beyond that, doing all the things required to become an Eagle in the future?
Scott's watching these boys week in and week out, right? And so, he's very excited about the future of USA Rugby because of these players, and he's put a lot of focus on the pathway. And guys like Brendan Keane and Netlan Gericke, they've done a wonderful job of preparing an amazing summer for our pathway. And also, at the end, ultimately, like there's a U23 team that's going to go tour South Africa and go get game time there. So these players are playing for a spot on that team, and it's going to be an amazing summer for our pathway as we start identifying, like we said, that next group of Eagles.
Every year towards 2031, we've got that in the back of our minds, haven't we? Let's focus on this game then. Andrew, the West. You've got the champions in your pool of players. You've also got, of course, some of your guys from St Mary's. There's some really, really exciting guys. I mean, I've spoken to a few of them. The likes of around Santos, the likes of a Solomon Williams, obviously from Cal. But then also plenty of others on the board. Maybe can you just give us like who you're excited maybe to work with and how it is, I guess, gelling these guys who are usually enemies in the college season?
Yeah, so we started that right from the get go, right? Just with it worked out perfectly. Harry and I, which I will say, we don't like the titles of head coach or assistant coach, so we're just co-coaches. Um, but Harry and I, right? Harry beats us in the regular season with UCLA,
Yeah.
and then we knock him out in the playoffs. And so, just showing the boys from the get go that like the walls have to come down if this is going to work. And St. Mary's, Cal, Central Washington, UCLA, to name a few of the colleges that'll be represented. Like we're all familiar with each other. We've all previewed each other in film countless times, and we've really just been pushing, making personal connections to just get rid of that kind of perceived or conceived notion you have of this player on the field. Getting to know each other off the field, build the cohesion there, and put an exciting product out on the field Saturday. Boys have been awesome, I will say.
That's fantastic to hear. And we mentioned Cal and St Mary's players, but also those other players in there who have had such standout seasons. You mentioned about Central Washington, Oscar Tracy, who had a phenomenal season. Then you're looking at Cal Poly and you're looking at Kobe Baker, and these guys are getting more limelight. They weren't involved in the sort of the last four or the championship final, but just how good is it that it's not just Cal and St Mary's players?
Yeah, we love it, and just the ability to pull in guys from all these programs. This morning, right, Brendan Keene talking to the boys just said, "We don't care about where you came from," right? So it doesn't. There's not a requirement to get in the door of what college you played for, right? We just want to capture the best talent, regardless of where it is.
Now, Blake, in the East, there's plenty of guys that you know, literally day in, day out. I wonder whether there's almost an element of being boring, or they been bored of you, or you been bored of them. I'm sure not, but you just obviously know these Life players so well. But then there's also Life and Lindenwood players together. I mean, I know some guys who play in the MLR who probably still don't like each other that much because one went to Life, the other went to Lindenwood. How's it been teaming them up?
Yeah, no, it's been interesting as well, and similar to what Andrew said, like we just told the boys, we didn't have the luxury of a camp heading into this, but we did a couple of Zoom online calls, some alignment calls, but it's really exciting, right? Because you got Jeremy Zwick from Lindenwood and Bautista Arroyo from Life and the two nines, and now they get to push each other and learn from each other and help each other grow and get better. And like there's those matchups, all across the park, right? You got Lindenwood props and Life props gelling together, which they beat the crap out of each other earlier in the season, and now they get to play on the same team. And so and then there's exciting players from other programs as well, right? You look at a kid like Welton Chirimbura from St. Thomas University D1 AA program, right?
Yeah.
And he gets to compete with Bradley Crane, who's had an amazing season all year. And in fact, Welton flew in from playing in the D1 AA Sevens tournament yesterday, where he got the MVP award, and
Wow.
now he's rubbing shoulders with some of these other boys, and that's just also testament to the good work that Gavin McKeevy's done down there at St. Thomas. So, yesterday they got to coach some youth together here within the Anthem youth systems, and they got to watch the Anthem game together. And so we did a bit of onboarding and a bit of just kind of the guys getting to know each other. So it's great to see these guys, live together and share the training part together, and then just socialize with each other. And the biggest thing for us has been connection, right? Build these connections, because you never know where you're going to end up. And it was kind of awesome. Like, so, I get to coach with Zach, who actually was one of my graduate assistants back at Life and played for me there, and now I get to coach with him. But he kind of told the story about how he met Colton Carriaga on All-American camp. And that was his roommate, and they'd played against each other all year. Arc State life rivalry back in the day, and then when Zach, was looking to finish his degree and get into coaching, Colton's the one that connected him with me, and he came in and became my graduate assistant, and his coaching career has flourished from there. So he kind of spoke to the players about like these connections and these bonds that you're going to build this week. You never know, how they're going to affect you in the future and what's going to come from them. And so, I mean, that part is amazing.
And you mentioned also watching Anthem there. That's the development system in itself, in terms of college to Anthem to then Eagles. And then this game, the West versus the East, is going to be the curtain raiser to Anthem against Chicago. Seems very fitting. I suppose before I want to finish up, though, I do want to ask, and I know we don't know the teams as of yet. They come out on Friday, but can you give us maybe 2 or 3 matchups that's maybe you're really excited about? Because I know we've seen the Cal versus Life, and it's almost a bit of a rematch potentially, Rand Santos against Bradley Crane. But is there any others? I'll start with you, Blake, where you think this is great to see, 2 great college talents going up against each other.
I was really gutted for a kid like Palani Simamani, who got injured real early in that national championship game, and he gets a second crack at some boys from the West, which will be great to see, and it's exciting to see him partner up with with some like a center like Evan Corbett, as well. So I think that'll be an exciting combination to look at. At the same time, like I'm really excited about. Me and Andrew, obviously forwards coaches, we're scrum coaches, so we're licking our lips at the battle that we get to have and the front rows. And he's got some exciting young props on his side. Guys like Connor Devos, going up against potentially like Oliver Kirk and the West, and is another young exciting player in the front rows. And then in the back row, there's some crazy talent, right? Like
Duncan
Byron
Krieger
Finley from Cal, and and Duncan Krieger from Lindenwood, and King Matu from St. Mary's, and Eddie Van Eerden and Ian Ronniebush from Penn State. So there's exciting matchups all across the board. For me, anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say you're going to pick forwards all day. For you, Andrew, as well, you're going to be working with the likes of like Charlie Walsh from Cal and things like that. But is there any in particular you're thinking? Yeah, these are going to be going up against each other and potentially future Eagles.
I'd definitely echo what Blake said. I'm very excited to see the scrums on the day, and the lineout for that matter. But one I would like to see would be John Wilson against Connor DeVos.
Yeah.
I think that those guys could be playing against or with each other for years to come if they continue trending the right way. And that, to me, that's just exciting, right? 2 young guys playing very well for their respective clubs, now playing in new teams, having to figure out a lot of stuff on the fly, right? Because as much as we want to say a week is a long time, it's not that long when you're prepping to play a game. So it'll be interesting to see how they adapt. Outside that, I'm excited. I'll leave it to just I'm excited for our outside backs.
There we go.
See what kind of space we can put our backs in on the edges, and what kind of magic they can create from there.
Well, you guys need to continue to gel them together heading into Saturday, let's say just before that Anthem versus Chicago game. From Charlotte, the West against the East. Guys, from me to you, I know Calls would say the same. We absolutely respect the hell out of what you do in growing the game on the collegiate level, and then equally on the pathways and at the international level as well. So keep doing what you're doing, guys, and all the best this weekend.
Thanks, Will.